Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Journey Podcast. Episode number 114, the Chris McAlpine Hockey Journey, Part 1. Presented to you by onlinehockeytraining.com. I'm your host, Coach Lance Pitlick. If you're new here, please make sure you subscribe so you won't miss out on any future episodes. Before we pack our suitcases and take a trip with a former NHLer from the beginning to end and begin this conversation, if you want to learn more about me, my hockey experiences, what I know, and most importantly, how I've been helping hockey players get really good with a stick and puck, just head on over to onlinehockeytraining.com. That's onlinehockeytraining.com and gain instant access to my 10-part video series where I'll show you everything. Consider it my gift to you. Lastly, if you live in Minnesota or are visiting the state of hockey sometime soon and you want to schedule an in-person off-ice stick skills lesson, I'd love to have the opportunity to show you my little world. Go to sweethockeycoach.com, that's sweethockeycoach.com, and watch the video on the homepage for instructions. Thanks, and I look forward to working with you sometime soon. Our guest today is none other than Chris McAlpine, a Minnesota native whose love for the game was born on the frosty ponds and rinks of the state of hockey. From the earliest days of lacing up his skates to the pinnacle of playing in the National Hockey League, Chris's story is a testament to the perseverance and unwavering commitment that defines the heart and soul of hockey players. We're going to take a deep dive and learn about how he earned a Division I scholarship at the University of Minnesota, got drafted 137th overall by the New Jersey Devils in 1990, played 289 NHL games over the span of 10 years, playing in 3 different leagues and for 12 different teams along the way. Oh, and he won a Stanley Cup in 1995. Today, he's a hockey advisor and player agent with the Octagon Agency with another former Minnesota Golden Gopher, Ben Hankinson. Judging from that, we have a lot to talk about, and we should get started. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Chris McAlpine to the show. Mac, welcome to the Hockey Journey Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Peter. This is awesome.
Awesome, you better believe it is to have you here. Man, it's been some time since we connected.
Yeah, it's been a long while. Back, seen you, over the years here and there, but I go back to all the times when we were both still playing and going to Acceleration North on the treadmill.
Oh, we're going to talk about that a little later, but I just kind of felt, a little throw up come up in the back of my throat thinking about that.
I know.
Well, thanks for being here and taking the time. I'm really looking forward to connecting. I mean, yes, we've had our passings and working out together, but I really, if I did know your story, there was too many beers in between because I don't remember it now, so I'm looking forward to hearing it again, as well as all of our listeners are as well. So if you don't mind, what I like to do with guests that come on the show, especially if they're former players, is for a few minutes, let's rewind the tape, go back to the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? Your parents, brothers, sisters, friends, your introduction to hockey and other sports? Basically, tell the listeners, give us a glimpse, a tiny peek of what it was like growing up Chris McAlpine.
All right. Well, I had a great childhood. We'll start from there. But I grew up in Roseville, Minnesota, and it was awesome. I had 3 older brothers, and it was just my mom. And like I said, 3 older brothers. My dad, my parents were divorced when I was like 2 months old. So it wasn't, it was normal growing up the way I did. We see our dad on the weekends and that was about it. But the best part of growing up in Roseville, we lived about a block from the Roseville Ice Arena. So my brothers and I and my friends, that's where we grew up. We grew up outside on the rinks out there and in the park there and, playing football, baseball, doing it all. So it was, we had a blast. I mean, it was a great childhood doing that. And
what was the age difference of your brothers?
So my oldest brother, Jim, was 8 years older than me. I am going to be 52 in December here. That's how old I'm getting. Yeah, so we're about 2 years split between everybody. My brother Jim, Doug, and Chad. And my oldest brother, Jim, who's no longer with us, but he was really into sports. He loved baseball, hockey. He was really good at baseball. He did gymnastics, believe it or not, all that stuff. So I was really everyone played hockey to a degree, but no one, I hate to say it, was very good at it. And nor was I when I was younger. But we were a big sports family. We liked playing sports and obviously having, back then and even now, growing up with siblings, particularly brothers, you know how it is. Everyone's fighting for the last chicken bone in the house. And so it was awesome. My brothers were good to me and it was fun. But you had to fight for everything in there. But yeah, growing up there and then eventually went on to Roseville High School and playing, as far as my athletic background, it was normal. It was everyone played baseball in the summer. You played football in the fall. Some guys played soccer, whatever it was. But I was a baseball, football, and hockey guy. And it was awesome. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, growing up in the 80s. But, it was a great time. And so I went to Roseville High School. And
hold on a second. Hold on.
Yeah.
So if you had to rank all the sports that you were playing going into high school, what would you say was your number one?
Baseball, by far.
Really?
Yes, I was a much better baseball player than I was at that time a hockey player. And but my favorite sport, believe it or not, was football. And I loved football. I loved it in the fall. It was great playing youth league football and everything. And then going in my freshman year, football obviously starts before all the other sports, and playing on the freshman team, I loved it. I loved playing football. I loved just sports in general. But playing those three was just awesome.
So when you were a youth and stuff, I'm a little older than you, but there wasn't the specialization coaches around the Twin Cities like there are today. Was your sports skill acquisition, was it just the teams that you played on and what you got there, or did you get extra instruction, summer camps, stuff like that you participated in?
No, there was none of that. I'm sure there were. I remember kids would show up, particularly for hockey. I think it was Ken Yackel's hockey camp.
Yes.
I didn't even know what that was.
Yes.
And so I think there was, not nearly to the degree it is now. And but no, I never even asked or even had interest in doing them. Now, if I would have known more about them, maybe I would have. But it was, guys our age, they say it. Once the baseball season was over, you grabbed your football spikes and you got ready to play football. And once football was over, you grabbed your hockey bag out of the closet and you started getting ready for hockey and start playing there. And then once hockey was over, you threw that bag away until it was winter again. So, and it was actually, looking back, it was really nice. And I think it helped me more just playing all three sports and just, but we were outside as kids. Even when it wasn't a sports season, we were playing wiffle ball, we were playing baseball, we're playing, tackle football in the field. Guys were getting concussions running into, poles and stuff. It was great, but it was just part of it growing up. So I think that's really helped me. You kind of got better without knowing it.
Yeah. Did you play any street hockey?
I think every day. Our garage was my mom. I feel bad looking back, probably older, a few garage doors and windows like everybody. We were out playing all the time.
Yeah, you had to find something to occupy your time, and most most days, mom or dad made that decision for you? Like, get that heck out of here.
Yeah. Well, remember the term, it was always, you're either in or you're out. And, and if I hear that door slam one more, the screen door slam one more time, then, someone was going to get a wood spoon or something. But it was, we were outside all the time playing and street hockey. Yeah. All the time. We all thought we were the old North Stars and, whatever, frozen tennis balls or whatever we were playing with out there. And it was great. I mean, and we had a lot of kids. I was fortunate in my neighborhood. We had a lot of kids and everybody was outside. And we, I think that's one thing that I think these kids miss today. I don't even know if they know how to organize just a pickup game, from throwing in sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's a different time. And, climate too. I mean, I tried to maintain an outdoor rink here for my kids, development years and stuff like that. And, it's hard. And I'm glad I don't have to do it now because the weather is just so volatile. Wow. So you're going to high school. Hockey is not your favorite sport. It sounded like it was your number 3 of 3. So you're going to play football, and let's kind of go through your high school career and what happens there.
So I, my freshman year, played football on it was the freshman team, whatever, and it had a blast. And then back then, because of my age, I couldn't try out for the high school team. I wasn't old enough. So I played Bantams. For Roseville, they had the old VFW, the Bantam A thing or whatever it was. Yeah. It was a blast. So I was still playing youth hockey back then. And as far as the hockey, it was great. And that was the first time, it was my second year of Bantams. I don't know if I grew a little bit or I just, just felt like I could do what I wanted out there. Like I kind of, my skills were not great, but at the same time, physically, I felt like, I wasn't really afraid of anything out there, that I could just do something. It kind of was a light bulb moment for me. If at least that level, like I almost felt like, okay, I could be dominant at this level in my own mind.
Yeah.
And so then, did that. And it was a fun year. And then, played on the freshman baseball team, in high school. And then the following year, I was fortunate enough, made the varsity team for football. And we were okay. I didn't play a ton, but we had a running back named Rod Smith. And he was a senior. And it's the first time I ever even thought about colleges. Because he was being recruited. He was what they call a blue chip recruit or a 5-star recruit. And every weekend he would leave and come back wearing something from Stanford, Notre Dame, USC, everything. Yeah. And it was pretty cool. And we had like people coming out to video they weren't videoing us. They were videoing him. Right. But we all thought we were in the shot or something like that. So he was just a really good football player, running back who ended up eventually going to choosing Notre Dame and went and played under Lou Holtz and won a couple of national titles as a defensive back. So he didn't even play running back in college. But anyway, so yeah, so that was kind of my first insight into like what's like college, because the good and bad thing for myself and I think probably my group of friends, like we never thought about that stuff. As far as scholarships or going to school next level and, all that stuff, we were just kind of happy in the moment with what we were doing. And that was the first time I ever saw like, oh, this guy's going to be big time. And at that time, you think college is basically pro.
Right. So that's isn't that funny? Because all of a sudden from that point on, did you thought that, okay, this might be something I wanted to start chasing. Right. And it was more the football side, thinking, oh, okay, college, this is possible.
potentially. And so then we ended up playing, finished out the year football wise, and he ended up, and there was a big to do, like they have for a long time. And I think they just had one, like for these high school kids who were committed to colleges, they have the signing deal. And we basically had a parade at our high school for this guy.
Wow.
When he signed with Notre Dame. I mean, it was a big deal. And so, everyone's kind of, we don't know what's going on, but we know we like it, at least athletes. So it kind of put something in the back of your head, so for me, it was definitely, I wanted to pursue football more than I wanted to pursue, at that time, because it was football season. Right.
Right.
And then football ended that year, and we went on to hockey. We had like captain's practices, and, myself and a couple other guys, we were low men on the totem pole, and showed up at these captain's practices, and they were a little different than they are now, not real organized or anything. You give them your couple of bucks to play, and it was good. And the older guys were good, and we had our tryouts. And we had an old coach that named Gordy Gens. He was from northern Minnesota. I mean, this guy was old school. He started in 1963 with Alexander Ramsey.
Oh.
And so we have our tryouts, and they're not going great for me. And I'm kind of down. And then I don't know, I tweaked something, like pulled my groin or whatever it was. And I could barely walk. Back then we didn't really stretch much.
Right.
You just kind of showed up and played. Well, I could barely walk, and then skating was just, it was killing me. So I went to Coach Gens, and he doesn't know who I am. And I just said, "Hey, Coach, I think I really, pulled my groin or hurt myself. I don't know." And he said, "Oh, okay, good luck to you. We'll see you next year." And that's all he said. And he skated away from me. So I went home that night after just what I thought was a miserable tryout, feeling terrible. And I just tell my mom, I said, "Hey, I can't, I don't know what to do." I told him I can't really do this and that. And my mom, it was just, I still tell it today, obviously. It's the best thing she ever said to me. She said, "Well, you need to decide how bad you want to play hockey."
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was just, and she walked away too. and so I remember those ace bandages, like
oh yeah,
I
for
grabbed
sure.
it. Yeah. So I don't know. We had some in the house. I grabbed it, and all I did was, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just started wrapping up my groin area, like helped at zero, but in my mind, I thought it might help. So I started wrapping that up, and somehow I powered through, and I've made it through the last cut, and now I was playing varsity hockey at Roseville, which was we all loved playing high school hockey, and making it as a sophomore was a big deal, certainly to me. And then everything kind of changed there. I was not one of our top players or even a good player. I was fine. I could kind of hold my own, and physically and whatnot. And we lost out to go to the state tournament up in Duluth. And after that, it went right on thinking about baseball. And so it wasn't real afterthought. But then fast forward the next year, hockey-wise, I had that feeling again, like, hey, I think I can do what I want out here to a degree, physically for sure. And my skills, for whatever reason, were getting a little bit better. My shot was better. Maybe I saw the ice a little bit better for the high school level. And somehow my hands, I just felt a lot more confident.
Yeah.
And ended up having a good year. And then it was, but I continued to play football and baseball all the way through. And then through my senior year, this is the greatest. So our senior year, playing hockey, we played football. Actually, I got to tell this story. This is the greatest. So football, we were not real good, but we had a good running back, a classmate of mine, Chuck Rios, who was a big guy, big runner. And we ended up being the 8th seed. Everyone makes the playoffs. That's what's great about high school sports. and we ended up playing Cretin-Derham Hall is number 1. Chris Winky's the quarterback.
Okay.
And he was unbelievable. And I grew up playing against him because he was a Johnson kid. And he played on all the Johnson baseball, all that, and then eventually went to Cretin for high school. And he was committed to Florida State. And we ended up beating him 28-7. Chuck ran wild, had a great game.
No way.
And I think we picked him off like 6 times. But so that was our little claim to fame for football. It was a big deal. And then we ended up losing to actually Johnson in back then, like double overtime or whatever it was. But so it was a fun high school football season to end my senior year. And then going into hockey, I had that feeling again, like where, okay, we had a good team. We had good players coming back and we just got off to a great start. And me personally, it was great. I had never talked to a college. I had never received a letter from a college.
Like not for football either? Not for football? Because
football, I did. I take that back. I did receive from the University of Wyoming. Had actually come. Yeah, I'm fast forwarding too quick here. But, yeah, the University of Wyoming, a coach came to my high school and had offered me a scholarship.
Wow.
I didn't know anything about Wyoming, and I think it was just off the cuff. The guy happened to – I don't know. Someone had a relationship with him, maybe a coach or something, a football coach. And the guy happened to be in town and came over and, wanted me to come play football at the University of Wyoming. And didn't know much about it. And I just, part of me was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? And then my mom actually just said, well, why don't you wait? Is there a real deadline here? And I said, I don't know. And funny, the guy called me like 2 more times, and then I just kind of, said, hey, I'm not ready to do anything. And then it kind of just went away on its own.
Wow.
So, it could have been different. It could have been, I think they were the Cowboys, the Wyoming Cowboys or something like that. I think they were, I'm pretty sure they were Division I at the time, but I don't know. And then fast forward into the hockey, we have a real good high school season, and we did not make it to the state tournament, lost out in the section final again. And I thought, hey, you know what? This is it. I didn't know what I was going to do after high school. I knew baseball season was coming up and all that. And then we had, do you remember the maroon and gold game?
Yes, I do.
So it was like at the end of the year, and I think it was mainly just seniors.
Because the ones that maybe didn't get, they were on people's radar, but no one was committing to them, so they put them in one pot and get a bunch of scouts coming over. Was that it?
Yeah, I think all the colleges, and there were kids committed to it, that played in it, and it was just 2 games. And the first game was in Grand Rapids. And the second game, and they did it by section. So whatever section you were in, you guys would play on this team. Guys from the other sections would play on this team. So I got put on like the northern with all the northern boys. So we're playing in Grand Rapids, and then I thought I did fine. And then we bust down, and the second game was at Roseville. And Roseville Ice Rink, my home rink. So played in the game, and this is where it got funny. I walk off the ice after we finished our second game in this maroon and gold, and I'm coming off the ice, and 2 guys asked me to come talk to them in this separate locker room. And it was 2 guys from the University of Minnesota, Duluth. And they just said, hey, thought you did well. We'd like you to, we'd like to offer you a full scholarship to play hockey. And I was like, and I've never had a phone call with them. I've never gotten a letter. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah. And, they're like, well, can we meet later or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm going to go home and, I'll go talk to my mom. And we're like, yeah, okay. And then we'll call you and let's meet somewhere. So I get done with the game. I get all my stuff off, having their conversation. And I walk out the back door of Roseville Ice Arena, and I'm walking across the field. And these guys are in their car, and they're watching me. And they pull up next to me, and they're like, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." They're like, "Well, where do you live?" And I said, "Just, up the street." And they're like, "Well, can we just, do you want to ride?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I get home, and obviously we don't have cell phones or anything back then. I get home. My mom's laying on the couch reading a book, and I come in and I have these two guys follow me in the house, and she's like, "What's going on?" And I introduce them, and they introduce themselves, and they're like, "Yeah, would you want to go grab something to eat?" And she's like, "Okay," like she doesn't know if these guys are the cops or what,
right,
And so it was really kind of awkward, but really funny. So my mom my mom's pretty shy. And she's like, "Okay, hang on." So we drive over, we go to Byerly's was the big thing. It just opened. They had this little restaurant. So we went in there, and on the drive over, she's like, "What is going on? Who are these people? What are we doing?" And I said, "I don't know. They just offered me a full scholarship to Duluth." She's like, "What?" So we sat down, and they were great. Finish up with those guys, and it was a good conversation. It was awesome. And I'm just excited. I'm like, because I'm feeling really good about hockey right now, obviously. And then we get home, say our goodbye, and Mike Sertich called me and said, "Hey, we'd like, did my guys offer you what I told them to?" And I said, "If it was a full ride, yeah." And he said, "Perfect." He goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "I'm all in." So that was, it was an exciting time for about, 20 minutes. And then Bill Butters called me.
Ruh-roh.
And Bill said, "Hey, Chris, I'm Bill Butters, University of Minnesota, defensive coach." And obviously I grew up watching the Gophers like every Metro kid. And, that was kind of where I wanted to be. And he calls me and he says, "We really like it." And I talked to him for like an hour, and which I felt bad about, because then after I was like, "Well, hey, coach, I just got to tell you, I just committed to Duluth." And he just got silent, and he said, "Can I call you right back?" And I said, "Sure." Well, Doug Woog called me. And so I had the Wooger calling me.
Who's the head coach of the Gophers at the time.
Yeah, the head coach of the Gophers. And if anyone knows Wooger was great guy. But he could talk. And he starts talking to me, "Okay, we've watched you for all year. We really like you. We never had money. So we didn't want to approach you yet till, we're going to see what we can do." And, and then I was like, "Okay." And then he said, "Can we come and meet with you in the morning, you and your mother?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, my mom works, but she's, she works at 8. They're like, "We'll be there, does 7 o'clock work?" So I was like, "Yeah." So Doug Woog and Bill Butters came to our house and sat with my mom and I. And my mom had known Wooger because my father was a South St. Paul guy. He grew up, he had actually played hockey with Wooger. He was a couple of years older, a few years older, and played football and hockey with Wooger. So there was some familiarity there. And, he's talking and he's doing his spiel and, all this stuff. And I can just see my mom just like, she's not buying it. And she's asking questions, like a normal parent would, right? And I'm like kicking her under the table, like, "What are you doing? Don't screw this up." And so basically they left and said, "We're, just get back to us, later that day." And next thing you know, I'm, what was I doing? I'm thinking about it, and I told my mom I want to go to Minnesota. And she says, You got me, Peter?
Yep.
She says, no, you committed to Duluth. You gave him your word. And I said, I know, Mom, but I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I really want to go there. And Jack Blatherwick, who's, been around forever, part of the Olympic team. I didn't really know him. He happened to drive up while I'm talking to my mother, and he put something in our mailbox. And I'm like, what the heck? What is this guy doing? He looked familiar and everything. And he obviously was a strength and conditioning and skating coach for the University of Minnesota. And he put a letter in the mailbox. So I go out there and I'm reading it with my mom. And he's talking about everything I did in football. He wrote a letter, just say, I watched you play football, 5 different times. He's describing everything and all. And I'm like, and my mom says, are you sure they want you to play hockey? That's so goofy. And if you know Jack, who's just the greatest guy in the world, he had watched me play football quite a bit. He liked watching all kinds of sports. So anyway, that kind of sold me as like, hey, I think these guys know who I am and what kind of player I am and whatnot. And the best part is I had to call Mike Sertich and tell him that I was no longer going to committed to be a Bulldog, and he M&F'd me for 10 straight minutes on the phone and called me a wuss. He called me everything in the book and said just I'm a wussy Minnesota kid who just wants to stay at home and play in front of his grandparents.
What don't you wish you had a recording of that you could just put it on TikTok right now?
Yes. But you know what? Here's the thing. He was absolutely right.
Yeah.
Everything he said, yeah, I deserved everything. I mean, he ripped me. And rightfully so. Because I had, I didn't really think about what I was doing. But I knew, when I got the opportunity with Minnesota. And so I jumped on it.
But here's what I would say is that, because you said that you never heard from anyone until after they just kind of popped out of the woodwork and said, hey, you want a scholarship? So do you think that it would have made a difference if they, had some regular contact with you during the winter season and then offered you and then Minnesota came in? Would that have been a harder decision probably?
Yeah, it would have been a harder decision. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and I think recruiting obviously is probably a little bit different now. And it's, I think everyone kind of, particularly the younger kids, everyone can send out a letter and just make sure that you've touched base with them, right? So they know that there's some interest there and it's, so having the internet and everything's a lot easier, right? You can send emails instead of just writing up a letter or, phone calls. It's easier to send a text and all that kind of stuff. But
they still give you that envelope of money? Like when they're trying to get you?
You know what? They can. I think they can give you a lot more now, though. They can. That's actually
$20 bill in your hand, All right, we really want you. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, that's I think they can do that now. I think it's even getting to the millions for some of these football and basketball players.
Wow.
So, which is good. So fast forward, then I finished my, here's the best. So once I committed, and here's where it comes full circle with you, Peter. So obviously they had all of the recruits already. I was the last guy to commit to Minnesota. You guys, I think your senior year, correct me if I'm wrong, you were injured.
Yep.
Or you had surgery or something.
Yep, I was hurt.
Yeah. So they said, hey, and I hadn't even visited the campus, anything, and you guys were playing, I think, the University of Maine. And they said, why don't you come to the game, come down. We're going to put you up at the Radisson Hotel, which is now what the University Hotel or whatever it's called, down on campus. And come to a game, and then, you'll go out with one of the players after and, get a bite to eat. And I was like, yeah, sure. So go watch the game. It was great. I go down the locker room after. I'm just standing there. And I think Bill Butters or Doug Woog handed you some cash. You grabbed your coat, introduced yourself, and said, "Let's go." Through the game. And then we proceeded to the Ace Bar.
Oh, man. Should we be talking about this? This is how I close the deal with I don't know how many players.
I know. So you took me to the Ace Bar, and here's the best part.
Ace Box Bar. Ace Box.
Ace Box, yes. Yes. That's it. A little dive bar on University there?
Yeah, St. Paul, though. St. Paul side.
Yeah, St. Paul. Yeah, that's where I'm most comfortable. And the best is you asked me, what kind of beer do you like? And I mistakenly said anything. And you like that lager beer, like Lannenkugel's or something, dark beer. So after a couple of pictures of those, then I really knew I made the right decision. And the best part, you dropped me off at the hotel. You said, I think you did. You said you went in and bought me a case of beer and said, and dropped me off at the hotel and said, I'd take you to Station 19, but you probably can't get in. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough. So I proceeded to call like 3 of my buddies from the hotel, and they all came down. I had like 6 people come down because I had a case of beer in a hotel room. And so we all hung out there. And then I woke up. I got a call at like 7 a.m. I forgot I was supposed to meet those guys in downstairs for breakfast.
The coaches?
The coaches. So I'm just scrambling and brush my teeth, I hope. And anyway, got ready. My buddies are still sleeping in the room. And I go down, have breakfast, and Wooger and Butts and I think it was Paul Otsby and Jack are there, and Bullet Bob. I forget. They were all there. And just asked me, hey, how was the night? How was everything? Said, how was Lance? Lance was great. The whole thing was great. And I'm just dying right now. And they're just like, okay, good. All right, well, we'll see you.
We'll see you.
And that was it. Yeah. So it was just an exciting time for me at that time.
So
you were a big part of that recruiting. Well, I'd already committed, but I knew I made the right decision when you brought me to the Ace Box.
Oh, that was this. The times have changed, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. That was a long, long time ago. Yes. So, anyways, all right. So now you graduate from Roseville. You're starting your college career. Did you get into the lineup right away, or did you have a few? Did you have a little trouble getting in? Because, every year around this time, I got a bunch of players that I work with, and you go through tryouts and camp, whatever, and all of a sudden, what you prepared for, what you've been counting on, doesn't happen, and you were the last one to be committed to Minnesota. I mean, did you just jump into the lineup, or did you have to scratch and claw and bite a few guys to get in there?
I was fortunate. So we had, whatever, our training camp or whatever we did in college, or inter-squad scrimmages and whatnot. And I never really thought about it or anything. I just, I felt like I fit in. I was, physical, and I think that's what kind of stood out for me. That was kind of my calling card a little bit. Took a lot of hacks and whacks from, obviously Benny Hankinson and, Big Jake Innebeck. Yeah. So I never really thought about it. And then it was our first weekend of games, and Bill Butters came up and said, you're going to play Friday night, and Mike Muller's playing on Saturday. And I said, yeah, okay. Is that how it works? I never really put a lot of thought into it. And so we played Friday, and I played well. And I think we tied or something like that, but I played well. And then the next morning, go to the rink, and Butts says, you're playing tonight too. And I was like, okay. And then kind of went from there. And then there was one game like a month later, and Mike was a good player. Like Mike Muller was a big guy. He could skate. He was a second round pick by, I think, Winnipeg at the time. Like he looked the part. I mean, he had a 100-mile plus slap shot, everything. And, and Doug Woog did tell me, he said, hey, we got big plans for this guy. So, it's going to be hard for you to play every night. And it's like, yeah, okay. But it kind of went in one ear out the other. I didn't really, put much thought into it. So we were playing Northern Michigan, who at the time was a big rival of ours. Yeah. And we played them at home Friday night, and I ended up scoring, and we win the game. It was big. And Wooger, he tells me after the game, he says, hey, you're not playing tomorrow. And he goes, but there's a JV game. Just be by your phone. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. And all I heard was you're not playing. So I went out and joined some of the other boys who weren't playing. And every other college student at Station 19 and a couple other places. Yeah. And then I don't know. I never heard the phone ring. He said he called me, but I show up for the game, not to play, just, and word graph. He's like, where were you? And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I wanted you to play in that JV game. And I said, wow, I didn't even know about it. And he's like, yeah, right. And, it wasn't a big deal, but it was kind of funny. So, yeah, after that, though, it was I was fortunate. I was able to kind of stick in the lineup.
I look at your career, you just progressively got better and better from a point total. You also logged a lot of penalty minutes. At that point in time, I mean, you didn't think that you were going to play college sports. At one point, when did you start thinking that you possibly could play after college?
To be honest, it was Bill Butters would always I really, give him a lot of credit, not just for myself, but for a lot of guys. Like he was able to take the D and kind of make a little family inside a bigger family, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he can, and he would always tell, like, I know for sure myself, but all the D, he'd always say, hey, if you want to play at the next level, you got to start doing this more, or you got to do this, or you got to be consistent in that. And Dougie Zamolik was a year older than me, and him and I were D partners. And Doug was a first-round draft pick. So, for sure he's thinking, hey, I'm going to the, he's getting ready to go to the pros, at some point. And Doug was great teammate, great guy, fun on and off the ice. But when it came on the ice, I mean, he really worked at it. And so it helped me, and it was a lot of, like, Butts would take Doug, myself, and some other guys, and, we'd go watch different things. And back then it wasn't like watching video because we didn't have it the way they do now. But it was just, he would just kind of like, hey, tell us stories and all this. And obviously Butts, when he played, was basically a criminal. So that was the big part for me. And then I had a good freshman year, never thought about pro, other than I was drafted out of high school, like most of the guys, by New Jersey. But I had never heard from New Jersey. I didn't, no one had ever called me or told me or anything like that. I'd never heard from New Jersey. And then my sophomore year, a guy named Marshall Johnston had called me and asked if, hey, you want to go to Vecchio's, a little Italian place, well-known in Dinkytown there. And I had met with him, and he just said, hey, how you doing? This, that. And he had a big package with him, in this big cardboard box. And so we eat, and he just, I'm still kind of figuring out, okay, what do you do? Are you the coach? Are you the GM? Or what do you do for New Jersey? Well, and he says, all right, here you go. Hey, I got this, especially for you. And he goes, then the instructions are inside. So I go back to my place and I open the thing up, and it's a slide board, a rolled up one of those things. Remember, like to help with your skating. And he wrote a note. He had a note on there. Hey, keep working on your skating. I was just like, I didn't know if I was insulted or like, what the hell is this thing? I mean, it was so cheap. You put little booties on, and this thing rolled out, and you had to just kind of slide across. I tried it for a half a second. And I don't know what I did with it, but I did not. I should have used it more, probably. But
oh, that's funny. I wonder if Jack Blatherwick was insulted by that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So yeah, then that was that part. And then my sophomore year wasn't great. A lot of penalty minutes, and then my junior year was really good. And I had a good junior year. And then actually New Jersey had called, and that's what's different between, when you get agents or advisors or something. Like now we're all over, 14, 15-year-olds, in our world, which is just crazy. Back then, I had one agent call me. I didn't know who he was. Didn't really, no one else was really talking about agents or anything, in the locker room or anything. I know some guys had some, I guess. And then I got a phone call. I lived with 5 other guys at the University of Minnesota. It was, probably like October sometime, or late September. And, we have one house phone. Yeah. And it rang, and I happened to pick it up, and it's a guy and guy introduced himself. He says, hey, I'm looking for Chris McAlpine. I said, yeah, that's me. He said, hey, my name's Jeff Solomon. I'm an agent. And I had heard his name, I think, because I think I knew he had Zamolik. And I said, okay, and he said, hey, I could either fly in and meet with you today, or I could just fly home, because he was somewhere in Canada. And I said, well, when would you get in? He said, probably around like 4:00. And I said, well, we're having a party, so I don't know if you think you could get in, and, what time would we be done? And he's like, oh, I'll have you out of there by 6:30 or something like that. And Jeff came in, and I met him over at Vecchio's, and we just talked for like a couple hours, and he was great. He just told me exactly, what he did, how he did things. He said, you're drafted by New Jersey. It's really going to be a tough negotiation at some point. Lou Lamoriello is really tough to deal with, all this stuff. He was naming names. I didn't know who they were.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, well, I've never really, I've had one interaction. The guy basically said, I can't skate. And so fast forward, he's like, and we're drinking, I think we drank like 3 pitchers of beer. and I just liked him. I felt like, I felt comfortable with him. I felt like what he was saying to me was true, and so there was just a comfort level. And then he was smart, and he just said, so what do you think? And after the 3rd pitcher, I think I said, yeah, you're my guy.
You're my guy.
You're my guy. And then I said, hey, we're having a party. You want to come over? He goes like, yeah, no, I'm going to try to catch a flight out of here.
Wow.
So and then, I never talked to him again until, I don't know, late my senior year, because I ended up staying and talked to him, maybe a couple times, whatever, but about nothing. And then he told me straight out. So fast forward, my senior year, I had a good year.
Yeah, your totals were 36 games, 12 goals, 18 assists, 30 points, 121 penalty minutes. Solid numbers.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a good year. We had a good team. We made it to the Final Four, which was big for, us.
Were you a captain?
I was a captain. Jeff Nielsen and myself were captains that year. But the funny thing about that year, this is the greatest. So we started that year off, I think 06-2.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was one of the worst starts in Gopher hockey, if not the worst in Gopher hockey history. And Jeff Nielsen and I went to a little pub on a Sunday night, Foul Play, which you're familiar with probably, or heard of it. Anyway, we sat up there Sunday night, we said, boy, we're going to be known as the captains of the worst Gopher hockey team in history. And then we proceeded to go on like an 18-game heater. Like, I think we won like 16 of our next 18 or something like that. Or we were unbeaten in the next 18. So it ended well. But here's where here's where Jeff Solomon, who I chose as an agent, where it really kind of helped me in what I'm doing now. Everything he told me, how it was going to go, went exactly like that. So he told me, he said, New Jersey is notoriously, cheap, like they say that about everybody, right?
Yeah.
And he said, when your season's over, you're going to watch all your buddies sign. He goes, and it's just, but we're, and it's going to be hard. You're going to watch your buddies sign. They're all going to sign. And he just said, but you're better than your buddies. And that was what he would say to me, pumping smoke up my ass. But I was like, okay. He goes, you just got it. Just be patient. Be patient. Well, it dragged on. New Jersey had offered, and I think, I don't know, whatever it was. And I was like, for a guy who has no money, I'm like, yeah, this is great. What do you think? And he goes, no chance. And I says, well, what do you do? And he goes, I told him no. I was like, oh, okay. And then, a month goes by. Almost all my teammates are signing. I've already signed or, know where they're going.
Right.
And he calls me. He says, okay, they upped it a little bit. I said, okay, do we take it? And he says, no. And now I'm getting nervous. And Bill Butters calls me and says, hey, I don't know if you got the right guy, And I said, well, why do you say that? And he goes, well, Lou Amarillo called me and said, you're getting bad advice and all that. And I was like, really? And I was like, and then I had, they had started that independent team, the Moose, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was Frank Serratori was the coach.
Minnesota Moose.
And yeah, the Minnesota Moose. They were an American League team. I forget what, were they the IHL? Maybe?
I think they were the IHL, yeah.
Yeah. So fast forward, here's when I got nervous a little bit. He started calling me. And because now we're in July. And he's saying, hey, you don't want to sign New Jersey. That's a bad spot. Come play for us. This will be great. And then you can be a free agent or whatever. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, no, I don't want to play for the Moose, and he was real nice about it. Well, fast forward, I don't know. Now I'm starting to I don't know if I'm doing the right thing and, at all. And it's a week before training camp starts and I'm not signed. Oh. And yeah, so I'm like, and for going through this for the first time, I was like, I don't know. Now I'm starting to kind of second guess Jeff a little bit. And I happened to be sleeping over at my girlfriend's, who's now wife, at the time at her place. And her phone rings at like 10 in the morning. And one of her roommates comes in and says, hey, Chris, there's someone on the phone for you. And I don't know. I must have given Jeff Solomon my girlfriend's number because he called and it's him on the line. And he says, hey, and it's 2 days before training camp starts. And he says, okay, you ready? And he tells me the deal. And I said, okay, are we taking this one? He goes, you're damn right we're taking this one. And I said, what do I have to do? He goes, get packed. You got a flight in 4 hours.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so I look back on it, it was hectic, but it was good. You didn't have a lot of time to reflect on it. And so I was like, okay, great. Packed my stuff and went to the airport basically and flew to New Jersey, which was a whole culture shock being from the Midwest and never really being out of the Midwest. And then all of a sudden looking around and going, wow, look at the men here.
Oh, yeah.
But what really helped me was Benny Hankinson had been in the organization and played with the Devils, so he was there.
Who you played with at the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, who I played with at the University of Minnesota. He was their captain when I was a freshman, and he was just awesome. He was awesome to me and everybody. He was probably one of the best captains I've ever had, by far.
Yeah.
And so he helped me a lot. And then there was really good guys like Billy Guerin was great, who's the GM of the Wild now. And because they had all gone through this too. They had all been the, college guys, So there was a lot of college guys, but even all the guys from Major Junior. It was just a great group of guys. So it really allowed me to just kind of ease into it. And plus, Corey Millen was there, another Minnesota guy, and played at the University of Minnesota, obviously. Tom Chorsky was there. But and then the other great guy was Mike Peluso, who from Grand Rapids there, or Pingilly, and he had played at Alaska, but he had fought his way all the way up in the NHL. And just tough as nails, yeah. But he was just awesome. And he was that guy, he'd look and he'd go, oh, you're from Minnesota? All right. And he'd take you under his wing. Yeah. It was great. Yeah. And so that was just, it was a blast. That year was a roller coaster, but it was fun. But I go back to just finish up on Jeff Solomon. I always go back. Everything he said and how it was going to played out exactly how he said it. So it just made me think, okay, if, in my business, if you're going to tell somebody something, you better, be straight up honest and never overpromise something that you can't deliver.
Right. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you bought when you signed?
The first thing I bought was a Bronco.
A Bronco.
A used Bronco, a 2-door Bronco.
And used, not brand new.
It was used.
He's smart.
Well,
guy.
it was mainly because we had a Russian kid, Sergei Brilin, who was a wonderful player. So he was driving around, typical Russians. He bought some high end. I'm sure he got a lot more money than I did, but he bought this decked out BMW. And I remember just listening to all the guys give him shit. We had Ken Danigo, all the players, Scott Stevens, and Scott Stevens drove an old beat up pickup truck, a baby blue pickup truck. So I was just like, that was funny. I was pretty keen on just taking notice, keeping your mouth shut, and just kind of noticing what guys are, Of course, the French guys, Claude Lemieux was driving something a little nicer too. Yeah. Probably he shouldn't have been. But, so that's when I was like, okay, a used Bronco. But that was part of it too, talking to, here's the grace. Here's the best thing Benny Hankinson did for me. So in college, remember, we never had to wear suits. Every now and then you'd wear a tie or something under your, letter coat or whatever it was, right? I never owned a suit. And when I agreed to my deal and flew out to New Jersey, right? So we're in training camp and they put up, we have 2 days, and then all of a sudden we're playing in Philadelphia, an exhibition game. And I'm on the list. And Benny Hankinson says to me, he goes, hey, do you have a suit? And I didn't have one. And I go, no. And he goes, and I got made fun of a little bit on that, but then he goes, all right, well, we got to get you a suit because, we're playing tomorrow or whatever.
I'm going to see him. So come on, Mac.
Oh, yeah, totally. It was like, are you kidding me? You don't own a suit? I'm like, no. I've never had a need for one. And so we go to, he takes me to Men's Warehouse. I got the worst suit, mainly because it didn't fit, but it was just in a hurry. And Larry Robinson, God bless him, he was our D coach, legendary Larry Robinson, like won, I don't know, 200 cups and all this, and just the best mentor ever. Anyway, we go to Philadelphia and we play the Flyers, and it goes well. And after the game, this is an exhibition game, and my mom was able to fly in because her friend worked for Northwest Airlines at the time. And so they were able to fly in, go to the game. And there was like, I don't know, 15 fights, during the whole thing. And so after the game, Larry's like, so you got somebody here? And I go, yeah, my mom's here and everything. He goes, okay. You sure you want to go out in that suit? And he was fixing my tie and everything. So it was good. So to say the least, they take care of you. Those guys were great. And I felt really fortunate to have, Benny Hankinson, all those guys, Larry. I mean, it was a good group of guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, this is flown by. I mean, we're at 1 hour right now, and we're not even starting your NHL career. So I think if you would be willing to come back on and do a part 2 of this where we can really dive into your NHL career, because I'm looking at your stats. I mean, you got a 10-year career, and you got a lot of stickers of different teams and states and leagues. I mean,
oh yeah.
So I don't think that we can get through that in another. I mean, we need that its own episode. But did you win a cup your first year?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I don't even want to hear. Just let's save that for the next one. Perfect segue. But thank you. Maybe next time we should crack a bottle of wine, and then we'll really get into it. We'll peel back the layers of the onion.
There's a lot of layers. Yes, for sure.
Well, just out of the gate to wrap this one up. First, thank you. There's the one thing I wanted to talk about, and we'll talk about it next time, but there's a couple similarities. And I say this because of the story that I just heard from you, that, you really didn't get any help along the way except support from your mom, and, you were putting in all the effort. But there's a couple things. One, if you ever read the book Outliers, I believe, I believe it's Outliers, either that or the Talent Code, one of the two. But they talk about, one of the authors talks about a study that was done of hockey players up in a junior team or something and now there's research that backs it up that, you look at an NHL roster, Division I schools, the majority of the players are born in the first 3 to 4 months of the year. And you and I were not. You were December, I was November, which I thought was pretty cool. And then both of us were late to commit to the University of Minnesota. I didn't commit. Myself and Peter Hankinson, Benny's older brother, were the last ones to commit there. And the third thing that we had in common is that we were the last ones to commit, but we all were captains at the end of it our senior year. So,
right.
Just believe in yourself. Self-belief is such a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, 100%.
So
yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. And, we haven't talked about any adversity that's come into it, but thanks for sharing your story so far. I really look forward to hearing the pro journey, because I know you spent some more time with Ben Hankinson, and I'm sure there's some pretty funny stories along that line, because we always used to work out together. So thanks, man. And then we're going to get into what you're doing today, which is being a family advisor to hockey players and also a player agent. So thank you. I'll get back to you. Hopefully we can reconnect and get this done right away so we can go back to back. But congratulations so far on a great career, and and just mentoring people that are on that same journey, trying to accomplish what you were so lucky to get.
No, my pleasure, Peter. This was great, and I look forward to it.
Well, that concludes another episode of the Hockey Journey podcast. I can't thank you enough for stopping by and listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing part 1 of Chris McAlpine's hockey journey, and what a journey it's been. Stay tuned for part 2 coming very soon. One last thing, if you think there's someone in your circle of family and friends that might like this episode as well, please share it with just one person. It will really help me in growing this hockey community. Again, I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or submit a review. I hope to see you back here soon, and do me a favor, make someone close to you smile today. All the best, my friends.